So good morning, everybody. I would like to acknowledge that we gather on Whadjuk Noongar country and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. And in the absence of our chair, Paul Fitzpatrick, who is currently interstate, it is my absolute pleasure to announce that Don Pyke will be the club's fifth chief executive. And after an extensive search, Don has been selected as the replacement for Trevor Nisbet, who's been in the role for the last 24 years. Now, Don obviously has a very strong connection to the football club as a dual premiership player who was earlier this year inducted into the Hall of Fame. Don has broad coaching experience as a senior coach at Adelaide as well as an assistant coach at both the Eagles and until today with Sydney. Don also holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree from UWA and has developed and operated a number of successful businesses in Western Australia, and that provides Don with really significant commercial management experience. So we're delighted to have someone of Don's credentials moving into this very important role.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth. And before we start with questions, for me, it's a great honour and a privilege to be back at the club that I consider my home. I started my football journey at the AFL at this club, and it's a special day, and I'm actually feel very honoured to be able to take over from Trevor in the role as CEO. I'd like to firstly thank the club and the board for seeing it fit to bestow this role upon me. I look forward to filling it to the best of my ability. I'd like to thank the Sydney Swans, Tom Harley, Andrew Pridham, John Longmire and Charlie Gardner, the chief men who run that football club, for the opportunity to work alongside or with that football club and alongside them in the last 3 years has been fantastic. They've been really supportive of me as I've gone through the process to win this role. And I thank them a lot. And to Trevor, who has led the club admirably for 25 plus years and has had a major impact upon the success of this footy club, to follow in his footsteps is going to be the big shoes to fill. But I come with a fresh set of eyes, and I come with a view to what creates successful football clubs, having been fortunate to be part of that in my journey. So at the appropriate time, with Trevor's stepping aside, we'll look to honour what he has done for our footy club, which has been, to say it briefly, is to say it's been enormous. And we're very fortunate to have been led by Trevor over the recent times. I look forward to filling that role.
Don, congratulations.
Thank you.
33 years ago, you walked into the West Coast Eagles. Did you ever think you'd be CEO of the club? What was your name?
No, I was probably just looking for a game when I first rocked up, to be honest. I guess the journey for me has been very different. It's probably well documented. I've sort of done bits in football, bits in coaching. I've been on the board previously, and then been in business as well. So it's not a traditional sort of model. But for me, late this season, when it was announced that Trevor was stepping aside, my head started to turn towards, well, what role do I see going forward? Do I want to stay in the coaching side of things, or do I want to use some of my other skills, if you like, or interests around the business side of it? And I guess the longer that process went, the more comfortable I got that was a great opportunity and a great challenge to lead the footy club in that space. And it is the footy club, it's the whole club. It's not just the footy program, it's the whole club. And it's going to be it's a fantastic opportunity. But when I walked in, I wouldn't have dreamt of sitting here 30 odd years later.
Don, congratulations. What was the pitch from the club to get you to come back to WA and to lead the Eagles?
It wasn't really a pitch. It was there's an opportunity, there's a role, and it was very much go through the process. And that was been a fairly wholesome process, or a very wholesome process in terms of the requirements to what the board was looking for to replace Trevor. So it wasn't really a pitch as much as there's an opportunity here. If you want it, put your name forward and go through the process, which is what I've duly done.
You talk about your business qualities as well, which you'll be able to bring, but is number one hopefully trying to turn around and get back this club to become an on-field success again? Yeah,
I mean, clearly right now, as we sit here, the game has given us that feedback. The game's given the club the feedback to say we're currently not at the level to be winning regularly, which is what we're aspirational to do, and we've got to make sure that we get our football program. And I talk across the spectrum. It's the men's program, it's the women's program, it's our waffle program. How do we get back to providing our members and our fans and our people what they want, which is a highly competitive and successful football team? And that's, I guess that's I've been fortunate in working in close quarters to the pointy end of football at other clubs, to have a pretty good feel as to how that looks and where we need to spend our time and invest our money to get the best return.
You've worked closely with Adam when he first started here. What's the relationship like? And obviously nearly a decade has passed.
Yeah, very good, very good. I mean, I was fortunate. I was in business before I joined West Coast, and and at that stage, John was just finishing up. Adam got the senior coach job, and it was a bit of a leap of faith for Adam to put me in charge of, I think I was in charge of stoppages or structures or something else, and a bit of strategy. And I'd been out of the game for a few years, and so we've developed a really strong relationship there. He certainly supported me coming in board, and then supported me fully when I went to Adelaide as well. So really look forward to working with Adam. We're not going to gild the lily here. We've got some challenges to confront to make sure we return to playing the sort of footy which we think and we know we're capable of playing. And I look forward to working with him and supporting him to get the best outcome.
Speak about the versatility and the variety of roles that you've had in football over the decades. Senior coaching position, was that ever something that you sort of wanted to scratch the itch again, or is that sort of now parked?
I think when I finished at Adelaide and I then went back to Sydney, it wasn't necessarily to decide whether I wanted to be a senior coach again. That wasn't sort of my thinking. It was, I got back into it because I love coaching and I love working with young players, and I love seeing them succeed, seeing them improve, seeing them get better. And as I said, later throughout this year, I started thinking, what's the next challenge for me? I was reluctant to head to another footy club. I'd sort of been at Adelaide, then at Sydney, obviously spent a lot of time at West Coast. And I guess I was looking for an opportunity to maybe come back to somewhere where I felt an emotional connection to, and I felt was part of my DNA. And that when that opportunity presented in the role that I'm going to fill, I couldn't have been more excited.
Don, can you tell us about the process in terms of when you first made contact with West Coast, when they made contact with you?
Yep.
And then how many interviews, what the sort of the rigours that have been like?
Do you really want to go through all that, Ron?
Just 10 words.
10 words. Look, it's, made contact, are you interested in the role? I said, yes, I am. And then it was like, okay, it was a combination of some one-on-one meetings with the chief recruiter. They're obviously trying to whittle I imagine a long list of people who would aspirational to do the job around what they were looking for, trying to see whether my skill set and my interest was matched what they were looking for. And then there was some testing, some psychometric testing, some personality testing, some abstract reasoning testing, which, was squares and circles and dots and what comes next type of thing. So anyway, went through all those, which was good. And then there was ultimately an interview around what did I see, what would be my strategy, what would be my vision, how would I attack the role. So that was pretty much what went through. That went through over a period of 4 to 6 weeks.
You come in, Don, with some priorities for this off-season period that you want to sink your teeth into?
Look, I think the football side of it is clearly stands out. How we do that, how I engage with our people to do that, and I've probably got a very simple view, which is we just got to keep getting better. And I've been a believer since day dot that if every player on your list gets better year in, year out, your team will be better. And so our obligation as a footy club, whether it's you're in the footy department or you're part of the club, is how are we getting better? How are we actually keeping on improving? Because if we can keep improving, the results sort of take care of themselves. So that'll be, it'll be interesting to talk to Adam and his coaching group. Obviously, I've got close recent history in terms of the football side of things, but I'll be stepping back because I'm the CEO. I'm not going to be running football. That's their responsibility. But if I've got some value to add, which I think I will have, we'll certainly have those conversations about how we jointly get ourselves back where we want to be.
Elizabeth, how big was the field that you chose from, and what set Don apart from the field?
Oh, we did an extensive process, and I think Don's outlined the rigours that we put Don through in the selection process. We had a very strong field of candidates, as is always the case with this. The role of the search firm is to narrow that down to a short list, and from there, there's the interview process. And certainly Don comes with a lot of experience, football experience. We are a football club. And there's a lot of experience that Don has, but also very strong commercial and business experience. So a really good combination of skills that really set Don apart for the role.
Don, Sydney is a highly successful club and a great club, but it's a very different club. What did your time there teach you, do you think, that might be of value to you here?
Well, I think you're right. I think the Sydney is a different club, a different environment to operate in. And having made 18 of the last 21 finals, they've got a successful model which functions and relies upon them to win games, to win the hearts and minds of Sydney-siders. That's the reality they work with, is that they've got to win games to basically put people in their stadium. Now, West Coast is a different club in that we've got a large supporter base, we've got a high membership base, but the fundamentals are still the same, and that's what I think I learned out of Sydney, is that it's the investment in people. And people are the people in this room, the people are the staff of the footy club, the people are our members and our fans. And if we truly look after our people and they care for their people, what Sydney do, and it's a part of and I don't know how to describe it, it's a bit of a nebulous thing, but it's almost this sense of belonging to an organisation that allows you to enjoy, have a better life. And that's the beauty of sport. That's the beauty of what we do, is we get an opportunity every week in front of our fans and our tribe to play a game, which it is, but it has such deeper meaning across the community. And I think that's what Sydney do very well, from the way they induct people into their organisation, to how they look after people when they're in troubled times, which happens, how they support people when they make mistakes, which happens. It's life, but it's live because all we have as a footy club is people. We don't make products, we don't produce anything else. All we are is a production of human endeavour. And ultimately, if we get that right, it's great fun to be part of, and that's why we all do it. That's why we all love it. That's why we're passionate about it. And hopefully, we can provide that experience for our fans and our members, which is what they have become accustomed to as a successful club, but what we want to get back to.
They are accustomed to not missing finals more than 3 years in a row.
Yep.
There's a feeling that this may take longer. What would be your message to Eagles fans on that?
Well, I don't know how long it's going to take. As I said, I think that's the thing, and I'm not going to sit here and make sort of statements about where we're going to finish or how many games we're going to win in bits and pieces. I think now we look at the process and say, well, what have we learned in the last couple of years? What do we actually understand to be true about how we prepare and get ourselves ready to perform consistently? And it'd be great to have conversations with people who have been in here, have lived it, and understand and see how they see the world as to, well, what do we need to do? But as I said, I'll come back to how do we keep getting better? I think we've got enough talent on our list, and I think we've got enough talent in our current group to play clearly better than we have in the last couple of years. But we need to focus on what we can control. We need to make sure that we're staying really positive about how we can move this forward, and get ourselves into a space where we're ready to compete come round one next year.
Elizabeth, Paul's always said that Trevor's departure will be contingent on how quickly the new CEO is in place. What happens with that now? Is there a period of changeover? How long does Trevor remain?
Well, Trevor's in the role, and then Don joins on the 15th of January. Trevor and Don know each other well. They'll work on an orderly transition period, at which point Trevor's got quite a bit of leave. He'll take some leave before he finishes up with the club. But I have every confidence that there will be a very orderly transition period between Trevor and Don.
Don, when it comes to possible changes at the club, how do you go about that? Do you sit back and have a look and assess for a while? Do you come in? How are you sort of looking at doing that, if at all?
Well, first and foremost, I've got to get in the chair. I'm sitting here today. I'm not going to start until January. That said, I'll start to meet with the executive and board and have a chat and see how they're seeing the club and how it's positioned. I've got to get a feel for how the people here, and we've got some great people in the room who have done wonderful things for our footy club, but how are we going to move that forward, and what structure needs to be in place? All those sorts of questions need to be answered, but I'm not in a position to do that now. I've got to really get my head under the hood, so to speak, and get a bit of a feel for exactly what. I mean, I've got my own overall vision in my head as to what that looks like, but working with the people and making sure we've got the right people on the bus and in the right positions will give us the best chance of success.
You played with some great players at this club as well, that are your friends. Are you hoping to get them back around the club a bit more and help out? I think John earlier this year said he would be open to joining the board and that sort of thing. Yeah,
we'll see how that evolves. Certainly, it's an opportunity. I think one of the things we've got now as a footy club is we've got 35 years of history, and we've got 35 years of successful history. So it's important we maintain that. It's not that we're going to look back, because we're going forward, but we need to be understanding of what's created the club. This club just didn't arrive here. This club has been built off a whole range of people and efforts and energy, of commitment from people who played to people who've been significant benefactors of the club. That's when I talk about the people. That's the sort of human capital that's been invested in building the club. And the quicker we get back to that and understanding how we can actually take that forward, then we'll be just return to what actually creates that success.
Elizabeth, Don's long-standing association, his history and successful at the club, how much, I dare say, did that work in his favour in the process?
I don't think that was necessarily the key driver. I think Don demonstrated he's got a depth of experience that is beyond just West Coast. I mean, obviously he's Hall of Fame. Don's got very strong experience, but it was his broader football experience, his focus, as you've heard today, around people understanding what we need to do, and also his commercial and business experience. So it was, I think, the breadth of his experience that really made Don stand out.
Don, there will be people who say that he will survive another on their own. He might not be able to make tough decisions on people he knows. What do you say to that line of thinking?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I was thinking about it before I started the process, and as much as I consider myself part of West Coast, I've worked at the footy club for 2 years in the last 20, since I left the board in 2004 and joined Adelaide as an assistant coach. So, the 2 years under Adam were the only 2 years I've had here in the last 20 years. So I know a lot of people in the room, but I haven't actually been inside the four walls. So as much as I've got history at the club, I don't see myself as necessarily part of the club. So I can bring fresh eyes to the club from that perspective, I believe.
And 2 teams out, you played in one, you coached in one in Adelaide.
Yep.
There's different kind of pressure that comes with that. How are you going to handle that, do you think? And I'm talking about the fishbowl media plus the pressure from fans to the fans.
Yeah, I thought. Well, I've lived that. I understand that. That goes part of it. That's part of the joy of the game. There's a high level of interest, and we don't run away from that. We don't shy away from it. I think there's the days of trying to pretend that it doesn't exist and it's not real, and try and put yourself inside a cupboard. That's not going to work. So I think we have to embrace it, and we have to understand that there's times where we'll be able to enjoy success. There's times we'll have to face failure. That's life. That's what footy's about, and as long as we meet both of them with the same attitude, we'll be okay.
Don, can you tell us a bit about your background in business away from?
Yeah, so I was involved in. Well, we worked when I played in a day where we worked, so I was still working when we were playing. I used to leave Ernst & Young at 4 o'clock and go to training and come home at 9 o'clock. So it was. Upon retiring, I'd already been involved and set up a business with a couple of guys in oil and gas in a seismic business, and we ran that for about 7 or 8 years, and it was bought out by a Dutch multinational company. Worked with them for a few years, and then the second involvement in business was the same space. It was in oil and gas, but it was in the exploration sort of space. So involved in those two businesses for probably about 15 years all up. It teaches you a lot about. It's different to footy, but it taught me a lot about how same sort of things: managing people, negotiating contracts, building brands, all those sorts of things.
Don, since your exit from Adelaide, how do you feel like you've changed, I suppose, as a football person and in that space, especially at Sydney? Yeah,
it's been, I guess, how I've reflected upon the time in Adelaide and what you learn. That's the thing. You're always learning, and I guess the role I undertook at Sydney allowed me to sit one out, one back, and work alongside John, and to see how John, goes about things, which is different to how I go about things, different to how Adam goes. But and every person has their own strengths, and also situationally to see how you deal with the things that get thrown at you in AFL footy, but doing it from a position whereby you're not the one having to front the media, deal with that. You're actually able to sit back and go, how would I do this? And that's the beauty of life. I've got a natural curiosity about life and about learning, and that won't probably ever leave me. It can be a bit of a curse at times because you're always thinking about how you can do things better. But that ability to sit and just go, okay, what does the situation require? Knowing there's not one exact right answer. To all these things is you're making calls based on judgment, based on experience, and it probably also allowed me to sit back and go, okay, I have got some experience in different areas that I was able to help. I think I was able to help Sydney in some circumstances.
Do you feel like your exit from Adelaide, given the controversy that was there, helped you deal with the lows as well as the highs you've also experienced as a coach and a player? I
think you just learn. I think that's the reality is, leadership. I think we understand in the modern day, leadership's not easy because the demands are as high as ever on leaders, and you're going to make mistakes. And that's, Adelaide, we made a couple of mistakes, but we learn from those. We apologise, we learn from those, and as you say, that reflection time does allow you to go back and see things in a different way, and that's all part of it.
What about discussions with the coach you are a coach and a very good coach with a very good football brain.
Yep.
Where you're going to be able to, how are the lines of demarcation going to sit on that with Adam? Are you going to be able to step back and just let the coach be the coach?
Well, I think that's the role, yeah. I don't think I'm going to pretend I'm going to coach the team and try and run the club. That's certainly not going to be the case. I spoke to Adam just before. We'll catch up and have a chat how he sees the team going, how he sees the game being played. I'd like to think that IP can be seen as a positive that we can use in our favour and work with Adam and his coaching team.
So you feel like you'll be able to advise without being seen to interfere, if you like?
I'd like to think so, yeah.
How hard's it going to be on game day, though, after sitting in the box for so long, to sit there in the business?
It's going to be actually quite pleasant on game day, to be honest. It'll be very different sitting back, sort of watching the game from afar without having a phone and people down the line. It'll be different, but and that's part of the decision is an opportunity to do something different, and get involved in running the club as compared to running the team, which we'll quickly work out where the lines are for that.
Don, a couple of pressing issues you need in the AFLW coach for next season.
Yep.
Any ladies put her name in the ring, wants to be part of that process? Will former teammate of yours, will Danny be part of that process?
Too early for me to tell. I can't see any reason why not, but I haven't had a chance to talk to Trevor or others about what we're doing with the AFLW coach position yet. But certainly it's an option, I would have thought.
And knowing Danny is a player, and
Yeah.
obviously a great coach as well, it makes sense that she has the.
I don't think there's any question that she's got the ability to do the role. It's a matter of is that what she wants to do, and I know there's been some media talk about that, and we'll get across the facts of what that actually looks like and what the interest might be to what level and whether that suits the program. And as I said, I haven't had any conversations at all on that, but it's interesting to hear, and it'd be great to see her back in the game.
Have you familiarised yourself with Harley Reid highlights yet, or know much about Harley Reid?
I've seen a little bit of Harley from my time at Sydney, looking in their recruiting meetings, and he looks a very good player. In terms of the draft and where I sit, look, I'll again get briefed by Trevor and Rowan and Gavin in terms of what the strategies around the draft. Will I get heavily involved in it? No, but I think it's important that as I'm taking over, that I'm at least aware of what the plan is. And what we look to do, but other than that, it'll be hands off until I jump in here in January.
Elizabeth, from my count, when Trevor steps down, there's 2 spare seats on the board at the moment because you haven't replaced Russell since he's left. Is that the board's next mission, to look to get some more people on there?
We're always looking at board renewal, and obviously with when Trevor steps off the board, then we'll be looking for a replacement, and then various tenures come up over time. So we keep an eye on the talent that's out there. We've got a very strong board, and there's been no change to our approach to governance, and when appropriate, we'll look to add more directors.
John told Ryan last year, John Worsfold, earlier this year, that he'd be open to coming on the board. Is that a conversation you guys have had?
Look, there's a process that we would go through with anybody who expresses an interest in being a director.
Would Don sit on the board as the CEO?
Look, no. At the press conference that announced that Trevor was stepping down, it was Paul then said that the new CEO would not be on the board. Don's obviously been on the board before, so he understands. But there's strong interaction. I mean, the role of the CEO is, a big part of the role is that interaction with the board and setting of strategy and agreeing that with the board.